Thank God it's Monday. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start off the week with what we do best, which is to do business here at this time, about 25 less than 30 minutes. We start from the global space. Oil prices were in a holding pattern in early Asian trade on Monday, as markets await that all-important meeting of OPEC Plus, which is supposed to happen virtually on June the 2nd, and producers are expected to discuss maintaining voluntary output cuts for the rest of the year. We look at the numbers right there, and we see that Brent crude for July contract inched up 11 cents. There you have it right there. It's in the green. That's about 0.28%. $82.34 a barrel. For WTI of the United States, it's also green, 0.37% at $78.85. This is much higher than where we left it on Friday. Public holidays are on the United States and the UK today, and they're expected to keep trading relatively thin. But remember, that holiday has started in the United States, so you have a travel demand for oil also impacting prices. But most importantly, it's the OPEC Plus meeting that's happening June the 2nd to discuss whether to extend voluntary output cut of 2.2 million barrels per day into the second half of the year, combined with another 3.66 million barrels per day of production cuts that is valid through the end of the year. Imagine what that would do to supply. A big squeeze, and the more squeezed we see, the greener the number gets right here. So those are the expectations towards that meeting in a couple of days. From there, we move to the Naira back home. The story hasn't really changed when we talk about the Naira. Well, in spite of all the efforts and all of that, I guess we still have to deal with the roots. But looking at the numbers, we see NAFEM on Friday, it closed at 1,482 Naira, 81 kobo, open at 1,485 Naira 66 kobo. So that's a little bit of a gain right there. So you see very marginal, 0.19%. And I think this is because of an intervention that also came from the central bank. NAFEX, we saw it close at 1,480 Naira 81 kobo after it opened at 1,478 Naira 80 kobo. This dropped 0.14%, you know, so it's just marginal movement. But do we say that there's now a kind of stability and certainty around 1,004, 1,005? We'll just have to keep watching the numbers to see. But I mean, when it happens only when there's an intervention from the central bank, then it's not really, you know, what we should celebrate. Well, talking about policies and all of that, in 2 days' time, it will be exactly 1 year since President Bola Tinubu got into government and started running the affairs of Nigeria, brought in a whole lot. I wonder if you saw that commissioning that happened yesterday in Lagos, especially the Calabar Coastal Road, a whole lot of things happening around there. But these are some of the major high points of the President Tinubu's administration 1 year into it. Another major high point is that now the country does have a ministry for the blue economy, you know, the blue marine economy. And we want to find out, that's not up to a year because that was obviously initiated after that administration had started. But let's find out how they are doing so far with the managing director of PTML terminal in Tinkan Island Port Complex, Mr. Ascanio Russo. Mr. Russo, good morning, and thank you so much for joining us in the studio. Well, we had said congratulations when the ministry, your ministry, was created, but I don't know if it has made any difference in your operations so far.
Good morning, Ini. Good morning, everyone. I will say that the creation of this minister has definitely made a positive impact on our industry in particular, which is the port and terminal industry, but besides us, I will say on the overall maritime industry. It's definitely a positive development because for the first time we have a ministry entirely dedicated to the maritime industry. And since he resumed as a minister, I would say Mr. Oitola has really made an impact. He has engaged with all stakeholders from day one. And we are expecting and we are confident that there will be a number of positive changes in our industry.
So, I mean, talking about your ministry or your sector, you have a lot of external factors. For one, infrastructure that affects how operations are carried out. So I guess it will now depend on how the minister is able to interact with other ministries to be able to attract, you know, infrastructural development around the port and all of that. And we do know the tales of a lot of exporters in Nigeria is not a pleasant one.
Yeah, as I said, I'm very positive because we've already seen some major infrastructure development going to happen very, very soon. You may have heard that the Nigerian Port Authority is going to embark in a major rehabilitation of the port of Tinkan and Apapa, and besides these two key ports, also in the eastern region. So this infrastructural development is a major one. It's a contract which we have understood is north of $1 billion. And it will entail the upgrading of the infrastructure in Tinkan, which will make the port able to receive deep draft vessel. And of course, when you have a port which is able to receive this kind of bigger vessels, this will create huge economies of scale, which eventually will translate in reducing freight costs and eventually in reducing the cost of importation and exportation for the Nigerian traders.
What about the bureaucracy around the port? I know there's been a bit of applause on the attempt to coordinate that, so it's not so much of a Herculean task for everyone. You know, you have to deal with this agency and deal with this agency. Has that trickled down to everyday operations?
I will say that things have improved a lot. I've been in Nigeria for many, many years, and I can tell you that the situation has really improved big time. And it's just sufficient to come to the port area to see the difference in the port environment when compared even to like 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, the number of agents on the street is much lower. The interaction between, physical interaction, I mean, between importers and exporters and authorities has reduced a lot. And this is because a lot of operations are now happening online. And even the traffic around the port has greatly reduced. And that is thanks to the introduction of certain electronic system, specifically a queuing system which is called ETO, which has really improved a lot of the situation. And this is because of the cooperation between NPA, the Ministry of Transport, and the Lagos State government, which has been able really to control the access of all the trucks, the tankers to the port area. So I would say that in the last couple of years there have been a huge improvement, and also specifically in the last 1 year things have got much, much better. That is also because, of course, the volume of cargo coming into the port has reduced, and this is a result of the Naira crisis, and so the challenges in accessing US dollar, especially last year. Things are improving this year. The rate of Naira against dollar has somehow stabilized. It seems that now we're moving in the range 1400, 1500. And again, I believe that this administration has put in place the right policies, even if painful policies, but these policies are eventually going to pay off. And we see it already, because last year it was very, very challenging. The traffic in the port in terms of import dropped significantly. But this year we're already seeing a sign of improvement. But another good news which we can tell is that the export from Nigeria has increased a lot. We have seen that in the past the ratio, let's say, between import and export container was one export container exported for every 5, and now this ratio has improved a lot. So the export out of Nigeria has grown significantly, and because also of the Naira devaluation, this has meant also increase of dollar coming into Nigeria.
So when you say export has increased, what are some of those crops or products that are being exported?
Okay, the key products for Nigeria, of course, is commodities like cocoa, cashew, cotton seeds, you name it. Cocoa, I believe, has been especially a big success story. You may have heard that the price of cocoa has gone through the roof this year. I think that as at now, we're probably about $9,000, $10,000 per ton. And this has really been very, very positive for Nigerian farmers because, of course, the price they are getting in Naira terms has been huge compared to what they were getting before. And this has really driven a massive export of cocoa from Nigeria this year. I think probably it has been the highest ever for this country.
So paint a picture for us, because I spoke to a cocoa exporter some time ago, and they did say that the delay, I know you said the situation has improved now. Like, how many days does it take someone wants to export cocoa or any other crop at that, the process, and how long it takes so the person can meet up with the demand on the other side of the sea?
I mean, it's very difficult to provide with a precise timeline, but I will say that there are no challenges really to bring the containers to the port. You know, over the last 1 year, the Nigerian Port Authority has created these export processing terminals where the exporters can bring their cargo, stuff the containers there, and then from there move it to the port. As I said, the traffic around the port has reduced a lot, so there is no challenging in accessing the port, and there is no congestion in the port. So the exporters, they do not really face any problem as at now. There is no delays, and that's why this season has been so successful for the Nigerian exporters in general and for the cocoa exporters in particular.
Some time ago, you were quoted in one of the medium how you complained about cargoes going through neighboring countries, you know, because of some of the hitches around here. Has that changed?
This has changed. I'd say this has already changed some time ago. In the past, you know, the port of Cotonou was one of the major import ports for Nigeria, especially for cars. You know, our core business as Grimaldi and PTML is cars and trucks. And in the past, we have been complaining because there was a huge diversion of this traffic to Cotonou. I will say that this is not happening anymore. In the past, customs has really acted decisively against these smuggling activities, and as of now, there is no diversion of cars specifically to Cotonou port, and any other cargo, I will say, is very, very marginal. And that is because the port in Lagos have become much more competitive. There is no congestion anymore. Accessibility to the port is much easier than it was in the past. So there is no real inducement for anyone to move the cargo to Cotonou. The challenge rather, of course, is the Naira. The challenge is the difficult economic situation we are all experiencing every day. And just to give you an idea, the volume of cars imported has dropped significantly. Again, we are positive about these reforms that the administration has implemented. We know that this has been very painful, is still painful, but I want to believe that now that the Naira seems to be stabilizing against a certain level, the volume of trade with Nigeria will definitely grow up again.
Yeah, but I mean, the customs duties rate is still it's still unpredictable at this time. I think it's changed like 7 times already, if not more, this year.
This is a challenge, but of course, customs has to apply the official rate of exchange. And since now the Naira is floating up to an extent, the rate of exchange applied on the custom duties is changing almost every day. And this creates some uncertainty, which is the worst thing for any business person. Because, of course, what we want is stability in the Naira. But again, I will say that in the last few weeks, we have seen certain level of stability. So at least with this level of stability, it is possible, I mean, to estimate the level of business you can manage.
So the administration clocks a year exactly in 2 days. What would you say they should give priority to from this time? I know you said the reforms are good, but what areas, especially as it affects your sector, do you think the government should actually focus and give attention to in the short, maybe by this time next year, we should have more fruit?
Again, I believe that the main reform which was necessary in Nigeria has been done, and that is really the floating of the Naira. Because the most important thing in trading is really stability and transparency in the rate of exchange. And we have achieved that. Specifically for my sector, I will say infrastructure, it is key. And I'm very glad that this has been really given top priority from this administration. As I mentioned before, very soon MPA is going to start with this rehabilitation of the port in Lagos. And this is a major infrastructural development. It may not be something which anyone may be aware of, but will have a very positive impact on our business. And it is really required, because Nigeria is a huge country and is astonishing to an extent that till last year, we have been mainly operating with Lagos port. Now, of course, we also have Lekki port, which has created additional capacity, but now it is necessary that we upgrade the facilities of Lagos Old Port, let's call it, Tinkan and Apapa, because these ports are not competing only in Nigeria. We're competing with all the ports in the region. And all the other ports in the region have already done this infrastructural development. So we are competing with facilities which are already able to receive deep draft vessels. They're already operating with ship-to-shore crane. I mean, infrastructure which are already, let's say, state of the art. So what this administration is doing now, upgrading the existing infrastructure, is a major development which will eventually have a very positive impact on the whole industry. Besides the infrastructure, of course, we believe that it's very important to streamline the clearance process in the port, because the challenge we have had in Nigeria is that the cargo stays in the port too long. And this is for a number of reasons, which concerns the clearing agents, customs, and all the other agencies involved. But again, even in this area, we have seen a huge improvement. Now everything can be done online. And the challenge really is the rate of exchange, really. If this is normalized and we see a certain level of normalization, things are definitely going to get much better.
So how would you rate the Tinubu administration 1 year into? Numbers, percentage?
I will rate it very, very positively. Before this administration came, I honestly was really looking forward for a brave man to do this very hard choice, to take these very hard choices. You know, rate liberalization and the scrapping of the fuel subsidy. And I'm really happy that Mr. Tinubu really was brave enough to take this decision. These are painful decisions, but eventually they are going to pay off.
All right, we look forward to when they will pay off. Managing Director of PTML Terminal in Tinkan Island, Mr. Ascanio Russo, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ina.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll head to the markets. Just stay with us. Welcome back to Watching Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We head to the market now to see how the numbers, what the numbers look like. Important to say that on Friday there was an OMO auction, and we did think that perhaps with the government trying to check its debt servicing, there will not be yields increase anymore, but I guess it was different. We'll get to that in a couple of minutes. Let's first of all look at the NGX and see that it closed in the red on Friday last week. So it's, well, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. We had most of last week in the red, 97,612.52, and still at 55 trillion naira. But it's looking really risky. You know, we have just 200 right here. We used to celebrate at 500, so 55.55, remember that. We did that a couple of times, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we are there now. Looking at the activity charts, the volume in green, deals in green for the week. Value in the red, lost some money right there, 40.71 billion is what the market closed with after 38,487. We can see the stocks that moved, made this move for the market last week. If we could have that, if not, we'll just jump into the fixed income space where we speak to Demola Oshutoki. Demola Oshutoki is with is with Access Bank, is a fixed income dealer with Access Bank, to talk about that auction on Friday. Demola, good to have you. Looking very sharp for Monday. It's Monday anyway. I shouldn't expect anything.
I agree
less.
with you.
But anyways,
I'm taking it. Yes.
So on Friday there was that OMO auction. And I think the rates are still going up. While some people have thought that we should not expect that because interest rate is going up, then the yields will also go up. But I think that was in contrast with what we saw on Friday.
110%. So what we saw within the week was we saw an NTB auction that occurred on Monday where there was about 500 billion. And this occurred after the MPC's decision where there was about 150 basis points increase. So it increased from 24.75% to 26.25, which it's at currently. The expectation from that NTB auction was that we'd expect to see rates increase. However, that was not what we saw. There was a subscription of about 1.5 trillion, of which they only sold about 600 billion. So you can see that there was a bit of a conservative approach from the DMO. However, what we then saw from the CBN on Friday was a surprise OMO auction where a similar size, about 500 billion, was offered. But what we then did see was we saw an increase in terms of rates. So on the long end, it increased by about 1% from the previous auction. So it stood at about 22.49% as the stop rate, which represents about 29% yield. So for this auction, out of a subscription of 1.16 trillion, we saw the CBN sell 1.15 trillion. So we can see that what they were trying to do is send positive indications towards the market, that we're interested in bringing a lot of FPI funds and, we're really looking to curb this inflation.
Yeah, but because the conversation that the federal government was sharp enough to raise more than half of what it intends to raise in the domestic market, even before the first half of the year will come to an end, that we shouldn't expect more increase in the yields. But, I mean, does it look like they're going to go against, also noting that, of course, this increases debt servicing?
So I think, as you said, what we saw within the numbers was you saw the DMO be, a bit conservative. However, from the CBN's view, this OMO auction is only for banks and FPIs. So, so the indication was we're looking to continue to bring in those, inflows, especially from FPIs. So they're using the OMO auction as kind of a tool to not only mop up excess liquidity, but also invite a lot of FPI flows. So we can see the difference in terms of rates for the NTB, which is at 20.69, and the OMO, which was at 22.49. So I agree with you. The DMO is being conservative. They've already borrowed well over 11 trillion to date. So, there's no indication that they would be looking to increase rates significantly. But what we're seeing the CBN do is we're seeing them look to bring in more FPI flows. We can see that, within the week on week, we saw a slight appreciation of the Naira. We did see significantly more dollar liquidity within the market. Last week was about $1.2 billion within the week. So we can see that from the DMO's perspective, probably a more conservative approach, but CBN is looking to use the OMO auction to begin to bring in more of those, FPI flows and hopefully have some more stability on that NAFEX.
Yeah, so can we expect, the auctions, I think we have an auction this week also, can we expect that the focus will now be on OMO while the DMO continues its conservative approach?
I think for the DMOs in the next NTB auction, I don't expect that there will be an aggressive increase in rates. The last one was about 22.69 on the long end. Maybe it might be a slight, increase maybe to about 21% levels. But by and large, I think what we've seen is, especially within the short term, is that the CBN is looking to probably use the OMO auction as a good measure to be able to bring in more of those FPI flows. And for the NTB auction, there's no indication that they're looking to increase rates because, as you mentioned, there is a cost to borrowing at these expensive rates. So they're looking to maybe hold or keep a more conservative approach given the size that has already been borrowed to date.
So what happens in the secondary market now? Talking for investors now, for the NTB and the bond. What happens there at this time? What can we expect?
So, at 20.69, that's about, 27% yield is still a good return, for investors. Previously what we had seen within the years, we've seen, FPIs also play within the NTB space, but by and large, it's still a good return, for investors. So I still expect that, they will still continue to invest. Most of the NTB auctions have been well, oversubscribed. So I don't expect that trend to persist. So I think, we'll continue to see local players as well as foreign players continue to play within that NTB space.
Yeah, but it's still a negative real return when you look at the interest rate and inflation.
I agree with you, and the CBN governor, quite early in the year had mentioned about, moving towards real return, for investors. You are right that in terms of, looking at even at a stop rate of 22.49%, which was the case for the OMO auction, there's still a negative carry. That's 29% yield. Inflation is about, 34%. So I think, what we're expecting to see is, hopefully, especially within subsequent OMO auctions, within NTB auctions, there's a slight increase. It's still a good, return for investors. I think, for investors, they're looking for good returns on, on their investments. Currently, if you're getting, yields of 26, 27%, it's still attractive. I'm sure that, especially for FPIs, they would want to see a bit more in terms of, moving yields probably to about 33%, 34%. So you're moving, more towards, positive, returns, for that investment. But I think within, the short to medium term, we will wait to see the approach, that the CBN as well as the DMO will take on this.
All right, Demola, thank you so much. We have some auctions this week, I guess.
So there was an NTB auction last week. So the next NTB auction will be in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Demola Oshotukwu, fixed income dealer with Access Bank.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
All right, so that's much we can take on Business Morning. You have a more robust business conversation at 1 p.m. Ladi Williams will be here along with Will Ebong. You can expect to get intraday markets and fresh conversations from the world of business. I'm Mini John Mekwa. Let's head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio.